Okay, a very good afternoon. I think we shall begin in the next few minutes.
Yes.
Are the speakers here? Mr. William is here. Is Dr. Cordelia
Yes.
on the
Yes.
webinar?
Yes,
Good.
I'm here. Yes.
Is our organizer, Dr. Sharifa, on the webinar?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, Ram.
Okay. So we should begin in the next few minutes. So we can actually tell how many are already on the webinar.
199 already.
Yeah. Okay.
102.
Fortunately, this is not COVID-19 positive cases. Okay, my camera works. Miraculously.
Yeah, at last.
Miraculously, I don't know why. maybe
Lost and found.
maybe my laptop he knows when to be present during desperate time. Okay. So we still have participants coming in. Hi, William.
Hi, finally I can see your face.
I don't know why. I don't know why. I just opened it. I did not do anything. Okay. Maybe I gave my laptop some rest earlier. Okay.
Right. We just hi, Dr. Cordelia.
Hi.
Hi,
Hello.
Dr. Cordelia.
Hello. Yes. Hi.
Good afternoon, Dr. Hiram. Just to share with you from the pool.
Sure.
We just hi, Dr. Sharifa. We just had a pool just now to actually see to actually understand the demographic of our participants today.
Yep.
Just to share with everyone here, 3% are actually from the undergraduates, 19% are actually from the postgraduate students, and 77%, which is the biggest of our audience today, are actually from the academicians. Actually, are the academicians and the faculty members. Of course, we also have about 2% from the non-faculty member that joining us. So yeah, 77% from the faculty member, which is a big number. With that, I pass back to you.
Yeah, thank you. So according to our list, we are expecting 500 plus participants. So I guess they will be joining soon. Okay. I think we should begin. All right. So a very good afternoon to all of you. 276 of you, welcome to this webinar on Guide for Authors Publishing Case Studies in Emerald. This webinar is organized by Unit Penerbitan Bahagian PJIM&A UITM. In English Publication Unit, Research Industrial Linkages, Community and Alumni Network Division, UITM Sabah Campus, in collaboration with Emerald Publishing in East Asia region. So we will begin the webinar now, and we should finish by 4:30. Okay, if you have any questions regarding the webinar, regarding the presentations of the speakers, you may ask at the question session. Okay, at the webinar, you should be able to find a section called question. This is where you can drop your questions. If time permits, the speakers will respond to your questions. If we don't have time, the speakers will respond to the questions after the event through email. Okay, let me introduce briefly the speakers today. The first speaker, Mr. William Law. He is a business manager in Emerald Publishing under East Asia team. With the introduction of the new platform of Emerald online database, he has been traveling to Peninsular Malaysia, to Sarawak, to Brunei, to conduct various trainings, demonstration, and publication talks. And that's why he will be the first speaker. He will introduce to us what case study is about, and especially what services Emerald offers to facilitate our writing, our publishing. The second speaker, Associate Professor Dr. Cordelia Mason. She is the director of Yayasan Uni KL, a foundation established by University Kuala Lumpur to promote education, entrepreneurship, and community outreach. She is also the associate director of the Sejahtera Leadership Initiative, an associate fellow of Malaysian Institute of Management, a member of the Board of Examiners for the Asian Institute of Chartered Bankers, a research technical advisor for the Credit Counseling and Debt Management Agency in Malaysia, and an alumni of the UNESCO UNEVOC TVET Leadership Program. Now, she has over 30 years of experience in learning industry. She has written case studies, textbooks, book chapters, journal articles, lyrics even. Her main areas are ethics, strategy, case writing, and social entrepreneurship. Now, most importantly, she was a research fellow at the Asian Institute of Finance, when her main duty was to write case studies of organizations in the financial services industry. And it makes perfect sense why she is a case-winning writer, and that makes her relevance important to this particular webinar. My name is Hiram. I will be the moderator for today. So I will pass the floor to Mr. William. Without further ado, Mr. William, please.
Right, thank you so much for the introduction. Okay, right. Before we start, just some updates for the audience here today. By using the webinar, we actually have prepared 5 handouts. If you were to look at the webinar panel on your right-hand side, you will be able to see a panel called handouts. There are 5 files embedded inside, and our PowerPoint slides from me and also Dr. Cordelia, which are also insights as well. And there are also some tips in terms of writing cases and why writing cases are also inside for your references, and we hope that it helps you in your writings and improving on the skills and success rate. With much further ado, I'll go to my slides for today. Right. Welcome to Teaching Cases webinar for today. Before we move on, another from the organizers, our main organizer, which is UiTM Cawangan Sabah, just to take note, dear attendees, if you are the UiTM Cawangan Sabah lecturers, only applicable for UiTM Cawangan Sabah lecturer, attendance for this webinar is actually recorded for training hour purposes. Please copy this link and paste in a web browser to complete the form. I know this link is too hard to remember. No worries, it's actually available in my handout. do download the handouts in the handout sections, and you can find the slides. Click on this link, it will bring you to the particular form, and you will find that the form will look just like this. Guide for authors, publishing case studies in Emerald. You can fill in this for UiTM lecturers only. Without further ado, I'll start for my sessions today. Mine is short. It's about my session. My objective is to share with you how to actually search for cases in Emerald, where to actually download the teaching note. This is the most important of all. What are the free resources? What are the resources that we actually have and offer for our readers, for our academicians, and also for our researchers? Third of all, which is a fourth, on the what are the Cases Hub and Malaysia Case Writing Competition is all about. Without further ado, I would just want to say I think everyone actually knows about Emerald so far. I'll just skip that. Emerald is a UK-based company. We have more than 300 journals, more than 3,000 books, more than 2,000 teaching cases, and so this link here will actually brings you to our Emerald cases. I will be sharing more in depth on this on the following slides later on. For here, I will stress that full teaching notes is actually accessed for faculty members only, and we actually needed them to register an account under the emerald.com and also get approved as an educator status. So what do we have in Emerald? Sorry. Right, teaching cases from Emerald. We do have 3 collections to start out with. The first one, which is e-cases collection, where we have the licensed content from 5 different partners. They are the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals, CSCMP, School of Management, Fudan University from China, Darden School of Business, University of Virginia, Kellogg School of Management, Northwestern University, and our latest partner, Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, the Case Center. Besides the e-case collection, we also have the case journal, where we have more than 300 cases as of today. And these journals these cases are actually ranked in Scopus. In Malaysia, or rather to say in our region itself, we have more than 800 cases in emerging market case study. These are quite applicable to our region and our academicians, where we find a lot of cases are related in our disciplinary, in our teaching cases, and also some cases from Malaysia itself. And I wanted to share that in emerging market case study is also ranked in Scopus. Subject coverage under our cases are from the accounting, finance, economics, up to the management, sciences, strategy, tourism, hospitality. To actually give you a more in-depth topic of disciplinary, you can see that under the accounting and finance, strategy, and marketing. So these 3, which actually taught the first 3 disciplinary under our e-cases. So we're actually focusing more on the financial part of it, the strategy and the management of it, the marketing, followed by the entrepreneurship, management, international business, management sciences, operation logistics, and others as well. And Emerald and cases, besides, so what cases that we actually have under Emerald content, you may find that we have cases, example, from the Nokia, IKEA, Lego, right? Amazon, Starbucks, Googles, and so how about Malaysia? I just bring this up from Malaysia, just to share with you. We have cases that have written about Telecom Malaysia, from Malaysia Airlines, Yay.com, Gulara Jeans, Coffee, ePay, Gardenia, which is the quite famous supplier during MCO. We're all looking for breaks during MCO time. One of the restaurants, which is called Balkis Restaurant, KPJ Healthcare, I think most of us knew about it. AirAsia case, it was published last year, 2019. Petronas, UNW, and our latest case by Utah, Kampa authors, which is about Porsche, a fingernail beauty salon. So these are some of the cases on them. I'm personally I personally actually compile this title listing into a more demographic view for our audience here to understand further. What are East Asia? East Asia is basically what I have combined all the countries in our Southeast Asia regions here, about including Japan, Korea, and also Taiwan as well. If you were to look into our contents under cases, right? Example, emerging market case study, in short, we call EMCS. It's ranked index in Scopus. As of to date, which is in end of April, we have 874 cases so far. Under the Asia region, we have 600 over cases under the Asia region, which actually compiles cases from China, India, the Middle Eastern countries, and also our region as well. So if I were to narrow it down to East Asia region, where we have from Cambodia, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Japan, Malaysia, Philippines, and so we have about 100 cases of them from East Asia, which 11% coming from East Asia of the 874 here. And Malaysia actually have contributed 50% of the East Asia here. 53 cases are actually returned by or actually written from Malaysian author or about Malaysia cases over here. So these are just to show to you that our Malaysian authors that publishing in Emeralds, right? We have it's not a small number. 6% out of EMCS is huge, I would say. And I thank you all the authors that supporting Emerald in terms of Emerald emerging market case studies. So there are also others, example, the case journal, Darden School of Business, and so you may find this Excel in the handouts as well. I will leave that to you for you to actually have a go through into a title listing.
Yeah.
Right. I also do have some inquiry before. I couldn't find the Scopus rank. I don't find EMCS. Is it ranked or indexed in Scopus? It is. This is just to show it to you. One of the these are the few cases that actually just print screen that from Scopus website. Example, King's Biscuits, Berhad, Crafting the Next Move, which is one of the case written by Dr. Gary Tant when he was in Utah at the time. It was published in 2011, January 2011, and it's actually ranked in Scopus. And last year alone, we have two new cases about Asia Berhad. One of it is Asia Berhad. And the other which is from the Utah Posh, Can the Lady Captain Shine and Rise in 2019 October and also March 2019. So just want to show it to you that it's actually ranked in Scopus for all the publication in EMCS. This is the main important one. We know cases from Emerald now already, but in cases we should have two documents. One which is the case itself, then the other which is the teaching notes. And most of us have been wondering how can we access to teaching notes. It's actually really simple. Only 2 steps to actually remember that. To access to teaching notes, first of all, you would need to register a profile in Emerald Insight, which is our emerald.com. I will show that to you. If you already have a profile in Emerald Insight or the emerald.com, you are halfway there. The next step that you need will be to actually send an email to our support@emerald.com and just to verify that you are a teaching staff member of your institutions. Now, why do we want to do these verifications? It's simple, because a teaching note is actually designed for lecturers, it's designed for teachers. So if you were to open it, publicly, so the students, your students will actually get a copy of the teaching note, and they will know the questions and even the answers if you were to want to use the questions under the teaching note itself. So we do not want that to easily available for anyone. So we actually wanted only for registered profile and you have verified as a member of teaching staff. All right. So where are the teaching notes? So this is actually where I will actually bring you to this page here. So I would say that all of you may have familiar with Emerald database. We can actually log in via your proxy. If you're from institutions, if you have any proxy access, you can access from the proxy and go through to emerald.com. Or if you have referring URL, you can actually refer from your institutions and join to the emerald.com. So once you are in emerald.com, so this is our landing page. The first thing that you will need if you are a new user, just click on the register here. Just enter the name, enter your email. We would suggest you to use your institution email. So use your institution email. You can leave the organization access number as blank because it's optional. It's not required to do so. So enter your name and email address and just register your account. You will be receiving an email to activate the account itself. So once you have activated the account, just log in. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to log in our Emerald staff account. Just want to show it to you. So once I've registered that, put in the email address and the password, log in into your account, and you are halfway there. So this is the first step, as simple as that. The second step is just to email that, write an email to our support@emerald.com, say that you would like to access to Teaching Note with your registered email address. Give the registered email address to support team and let them to change your role from the general user to become an educator role in emerald.com. So once Emerald support team has replied to you saying that they have changed your role, and then you can able to access to our Teaching Note. So let's just once you have access to our Teaching Note itself, you can just browse by searching the keywords. You can type in the keywords from here and you can search for the cases, or you can explore more in our Explore Our Content. By selecting here, Explore Our Content, there is a link to our case studies. By selecting here, you'll be brought to our case study collections. They are from the EMCS, the Case Journal, and our licensed partner from Kellogg, CSCMP, Darden, IIMA, and also Fudan University as well. All right, I'll just go through a simple one example. Hoped. Hoped. And so if I would do a keyword called hope itself, if I were to put in the case study, straight away I can actually do a keyword search by hope. I wanted to actually type in hope home. So I type in the hoped as a keyword and filter the case studies here. And all these search results will actually prompt me, will actually display for me all the case studies that have this keyword called the hope, hope enterprises, and some other more. But this is the one that I'll be referring to because Dr. Cordelia will be using this as her presentation slides later. So once we have this hope home, what I wanted to show you to you is that once you have entered into here, you may notice that this is the title, and these are by the Costa Rican author, and it's actually published in Emerald Emerging Market Case Study in the last year, 6 December 2019. You can download the PDF here, or your students, you can actually inform your students to actually download a PDF here to understand better the cases before they join in the class. So this is the class, the cases of this particular, the PDF of the particular case, sorry. Well, for once you actually have access to Teaching Note, you may notice that there is a second tab just next to the case, right? So if you will notice right now, you're not going to see this tab here because you do not have the access yet. But once you have the access to Teaching Note, straight away you're going to see a tab here, which actually refers to Teaching Note. Select this tab here. It will actually, let you access the full text of the Teaching Notes. And even you can actually download the Teaching Notes right here. So this is the Hope Home Early Child Education for Social Change, and the PDF for the students is actually available right here. So this is actually where I wanted to show to you how to download the case and how to search for the Teaching Notes that accompany the case. And also a note to all the audience in EMCS, every of our case is actually accompanied by our Teaching Notes, and all these cases are peer reviewed and also classroom tested before the publication. So right, I'll go back to my slide. So by teaching notes, I hope this actually helps you to give you an idea. If it doesn't, if you are still confused about that, do write into us. We can give you some guidelines into that too. Some other resources before I move on to our second speaker I actually compiled some resources, plentiful resources offered by Emerald. We have our database over here. This is a link to access to our database. We have our corporate website where this is all about our case collection. We also have an online platform free for anyone to actually register and learn. It is a guide for case writer. It actually gives the case writer a guide on how to write, and also a guide for case teacher on how to teach using cases itself. It's very, very good. I'll go through that in the next slide. And we also have the COVID-19 free resources currently that support the global pandemic that you're in right now. Even though if you are not attached to any institution, or if your institution do not actually have access to Emerald cases, so to speak, no worry. We have about 10 or 10 plus free cases right now for you to use. So you are not actually left out if your institution is not subscribing. Not to worry. You can click on this link here. I will show it to you where are the free cases for you to use at this time itself. And I'm going to share with you what are the ongoing competitions that we have. So these are the short cases that I wanted to show to you on the free courses. By actually selecting here, this link here, just a very quick one, you'll be brought to the our coronavirus and management epidemics, the wider impact of society. Currently, we have a few special issues from our journals that are calling for papers, and how to actually publish your research. And these are the topics, or rather say the free resources that covering topics from the expert briefings, from the business perspective, education, healthcare, solutions, tourism and hospitality industry. And so I am specifically going to show you on here. You're going to see this called the teaching resources case studies. By selecting the drop down here, you'll be brought to these cases. All these cases are free and are free to download, free to read, of course, and the teaching notes are also free to available as well. What you need to do is the 2 steps: register an account. If you have an account, just write into emerald.com to access the teaching note, right? So these are the free cases actually available for everyone to access, and that would be that. These are the free resources, and these are some of the resources that I actually pull out, like $1 Million Gamblers, Sorry No Kanitas, Hook Home. Of course, we are not going to say this word, but Google and Uber, which is a good read. One of the Uber discussions on that, right?
Yeah.
Cases Hub. What is Cases Hub? Cases Hub is basically a self-learning platform prepared by Emerald and also Prof. Dr. Michael Goldman here, our chief editor from Emerging Market Case Studies. So it's a guide for case writers and case teachers, where the case writers and case teachers can self-learn on your own pace on how to write. There are a lot of playlists, I would say playlists, and also courses to follow on how to write that. Example, how to identify a need, how to actually get ready to write, how to write the cases, and how to evaluate your cases before actually publication itself. So have a go through into that. It's actually free and actually open for everyone. Last but not least, this is the last slides to share with everyone. In Emerald, we are proud to announce we just launched Malaysia Emerald Case Writing Competition. This is a link to our competition information itself. We are delighted to launch the competitions because we wanted to promote, of course, and also we understand a lot of case writers in Malaysia, and all cases will be considered for publication in EMCS, not just the winner. For cases that have gone through peer review processes with our editorial team, if our editorial teams found that the cases something that they actually found interesting that they wanted to publish in EMCS, it may publish in EMCS, which is index in Scopus, yeah. And also for the winner, we actually offer 3,000 ringgit as a total prize pool for the overall winner and 4 runner-ups. The competitions will actually end by September 28, and we hope to actually announce the winner as early as possible, but we're actually targeting in the month of November this year itself on that. There's also another one, if you are not from Malaysia, or if you are actually writing about gender, about women, right? There's also some competition by Emerald. It's actually called the Case for Women. Competition is open at the same time, also closed by September. And this is something that to share to you that something to share with you that is actually partnership with the Case for Women and Thought case study competition focus on the female case protagonists on that. There's a link over here. Do click on the link to understand further. I open for questions, but the questions will be bringing to after Dr. Cordelia sessions. I thank you all for listening. With that, I pass back to Dr. Hiram. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. William. I started with 200 plus attendees. Now we have more than 400 attendees. So by the way, Mr. William, thank you so much. Mr. William is the business manager of Emerald Publishing in East Asia. So we are grateful for your presentation regarding case study, the services, resources by Emerald. William, I have 2 quick questions for you.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you talk about the journal, Emerging Market Case Studies. Based on your observation and experience in Malaysia, in this region, do you think people in general know about this journal?
I would say it would depends on the resources, whether it's actually gets through from the library to the academic side of it. I would say I'm also happy to say that a number of our institutions in Malaysia actually subscribes to EMCS. I do not name the institutions. Yes, it's just that most of our case writer in Malaysia they doesn't know that EMCS is actually ranked in Scopus. That's actually first of all, and the second one, which is the preference. I found that quite a number of our case writer in terms of our region, not just Malaysia itself, prefer to actually publish that in books than the online version. So here we are not just promoting about the case writings, but we also wanted to share with you how does a case cases actually goes up from just a real case itself, but how it impacts to the classroom environment. How does a cases being used in teaching it? So
exactly, that brings me to the second question. So this journal, Emerging Market Case Study, and also case writing, it seems this is more than just publication. Publication obviously is important, but it is more than publication. It is also about facilitating classroom learning, providing resources to teachers to in their teaching, or maybe even for setting questions in the exams. What do you think?
I couldn't agree more, actually. I've been getting some questions. Can I actually share the cases with my students? Can I share it with my peers? Can I even use the questions? You may find that the teaching note that prepared in the EMCS, in our EMCS and also the case journals, the questions are really, I would say, very research-based questions, and very strategically written about the curriculum itself. It's not just about the cases, but how does the author tie the curriculums to the cases itself. One of it, which is the home, I was actually reading that, and they actually tie it to the entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship. I learned this term right now, social entrepreneurship, which is a term in the classroom environment. And how does the home tie to the social entrepreneurship and things like that. So I learned it from the cases, not from the classes, which actually helps the audiences, and not the cases are not just for the postgraduate students or the academicians, but I would think that it also helps in terms of the undergraduates for them to understand further, because for them to understand the teaching concept, if you have a cases for them to refer to, they will actually easily remember that and easily recall the concepts of teaching. All right, thank you for the questions. Back to you.
That's great. That's great. Without further ado, we have to move on to the next speaker, Dr. Cordelia. Thank you so much. Once again, she is the director of Yayasan Uni KL, and she has vast experience in case writing, and she is a case writing winner. So we would like to invite her. We can't really give her a round of applause, but we're all here waiting to absorb your knowledge, your experience. Thank you, Dr. Cordelia.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Hiram. Thank you. Yeah, and also thank you, Emerald, for inviting me today. I'm very pleased to be with everyone here, even though I can't see you. It's like the case of the missing participants. Yeah, there's only me there and Dr. Hiram. But I hope that in the next half an hour, I'll be able to share some very basic things about case studies, because I was made to understand that I have very young academics and students. So probably we would try to find out what is a case study. Let's say we imagine that a case study is an entity. What is a case study? So that's what we're going to do in the next half an hour. And I also understand that some of the participants here today are seasoned academics, so I hope I will not bore you to death, but there's always a chance for us to learn or relearn something new. Yeah, so I hope we will have great fun. Can I have the next slide, please, William? Yep. Yes. Yeah. Dr. Hiram, can I have the next slide, please? Yeah. Okay, I will cover 10 basic things about cases. Yeah. So the first thing we will do is to, to try to discover together what is a case. And then we look at why do we write a case, and what are the types of cases, and of course, most importantly for most of us, why do we choose to use a case from the point of view of the learner? Yeah, what will learners gain by using case studies, and what are the roles of the faculty and participants? And of course, very central to what we're doing today and to the competition is the teaching note. And then we will look at the component of the teaching notes. And then lastly, I will go through some of the Emerald cases so that we can try to understand what's the ingredients of a case study. Yeah. So can we have the next slide, please? Next slide. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, so the first thing that I will discuss here is what is a case. So every time we talk about a case, we will I can't see the slide. Yeah, the third slide, please, William. Yeah. Okay. Even though probably most of you are from management schools or schools of economics, actually a case study, I think the most classical use of the case study is actually in the medical and the legal field. Yeah, but when people talk about case studies nowadays, it usually would refer to management cases. Yeah, so what it does is, of course, in the case of the legal fraternity as well as medical fraternity, you will see that because they're talking about real life cases. So what we do in management, we try to replicate that. So we want to imitate or simulate a real situation and imagine, yeah, because management is just a broad field. It covers everything, yeah, all the sectors that you have, economic sectors, we will cover it. Yeah. So what do we do? What is real? What are we talking about when we say it's a real situation? What we mean is that when we look for a protagonist, we can focus on an individual within the organizational setting or on an organization, like in the case of UMW, Asia, Charigali, etc., or to the entire nation or even the world. What is a major issue in the world right now? So we're quite lucky that, you know, never in my lifetime at least, we have one issue that actually grips everyone in the world, and that is the pandemic COVID-19. Yeah. So with that, yeah, as I speak about the word nation, I'm sure most of you would start visualizing Italy, Spain, maybe Brazil. Yeah, when we talk about the pandemic, because these are the cases that are mainly reported on the news, and also the UK. It's quite dramatic. If you think about the Prime Minister as a protagonist, for instance, you can see that, you know, he was at the hospital, he thanked the health workers, etc. And then as he was discharged, the whole pandemic, you know, just way down on the UK. So that's a big case from the national point of view. But we could also write it from the individual point of view. In this case, the Prime Minister or other victims or families of the victims of the pandemic. So that's what we call by the what we mean by unit of analysis. And interestingly, the length could be 1 page to 50 or more. Yeah, usually it's about master's level would be about 10 to 20, undergraduate would be 2 to 5 or something like that. Yeah, so that's one thing that you must bear in mind as a case writer. Yeah, because when we talk about pages later, when you want to choose what type of case you want to write, this is a critical thing that you must be able to manage, because how long can you write well? That means, are you good at writing a 50-page case or 20 or 10, etc.? Yeah, but whatever it is, when you look at a case, there are 3 characteristics. What is the significant issue or issues? Like in our case now, it seems like other problems are no longer problem. It's only that Miss Corona, that becomes a problem with everyone. Yeah, and then number 2, sufficient information on which to base your conclusion. So when you talk about sufficient information, this entails that as a writer, you must really go through all available information on the case that you want to write. And if you want to make the focal point an individual, that means you must really know that individual very well before you write it. Yeah. So I have some experience with about having this sufficient information. Let's say I want to study an organization and my protagonist is the CEO. What I will do is that I will actually go through all printed documents on the web or, you know, in newspapers, etc., all the interviews of this CEO, and I will transcribe them and really understand the CEO from A to Z. Yeah. So when we go and interview the protagonists, what will happen is that they'll be very surprised. So they would say things like, you know, academics, you must be wary of them. They seem to know you more than you do. Okay. But that's one thing that you have to do as a writer, because when you want to interview your protagonist, you don't want to waste their time. Yeah, so you don't ask questions like, how do I spell your name, those kind of things. Yeah, it's really got to be at the level where you are able to write something beyond what is already written about the protagonist. Yeah, so that's one thing. So sufficient information is very important. And then very interesting, yeah, when you write what is a good case, it depends on the type of cases, of course. Yeah, but you never state a conclusion. So this is where we actually have a problem, because sometimes case writer wants to conclude in the case study as though it's a case study by research. You know, when you conduct research using the case study method, this is the case method. It's a bit different. So you must always hang your case, meaning it must be confusing. Otherwise, there's nothing to think through. There's no decision to be made. Yeah. So anyway, what's the purpose of the case? So here we go back. Yeah, next slide. I'm okay. Yeah, next slide, please. Next slide, William. Yeah, because you want to represent reality as a case writer, you must really look at something 10 times or 20 times, because you don't really know what is real, what is reality from the different perspectives of is it of the writer, is it of the protagonist, is it of the organization. So here a writer should be able to disengage, yeah, meaning you must come on neutral ground when you want to write something. In as much as possible, do not write opinions in your cases, yeah, unless you want that to be a trigger, yeah. That all go into the teaching note. Okay, all right, so since we have looked at it, that one, so this slide, types of cases, yeah, of course there are thousands of ways to call them, but let's go through some of them. The incident means what happened. A background case, yeah, the previous slide, please. Yeah, we have the different types of cases that you have seen, and we have background cases. Exercise case is what you get at the end of the textbook. A situation, decision, and if you look at all the adjectives that's used here, a case can have many characteristics to it. So it can be an incident, background, exercise, situation, decision, and complex, depending on which level you are teaching. If it's an MBA case, normally it looks like everything will be meshed together. But if you talk about undergraduate level, then you probably would tie it to the topics that you're covering in the what you call it, in the for that subject, yeah. And then the next thing that I really, on the yellow side, I want you to really see whether it's a case. We sometimes call it live cases, or a disguise case. This is very important. Do PDPA and whether people will sign off your case study. If it's a real case, you got to have a sign off. But if it's a disguise case, then it's fine. And most of the things that you use would be in the gathered from public domain, so that's not quite a difficult thing to do. Okay, next slide, please, William. Yeah, can we have the next slide? Yeah. Right. Okay, next slide. Yeah, okay, so here so this is why, yeah, for all of you aspiring writers or people already writing, it's very important to understand the why of case writing. If you don't like cases, don't force yourself to write cases, because that would be a tragedy. It's a case of a tragedy, yeah, because if it doesn't suit your teaching style, please do not use cases if you don't like it. But I can bet that once you get what do you call it, initiated into writing cases, like in the case of Dr. Hiram, I heard, then you become a strong advocate for the case method, because you know that it's it will give a lot of benefit to your students, basically, for us. So here you look at Socrates. A case has the virtue of having dialogue and discussion. So it's alive. When you write, you must make it alive. So there are many writing techniques to make your cases alive. Yeah, you don't just write in the third voice, you know, it was a case like this, like that. It's not interesting. Currently, people even use comics, you know, to interframe what they want to do. They can use illustration, etc. Yeah, and of course, our great educationist Dewey, he said it's about being pragmatic. So cases are about learning by doing. It's hands-on approach, so very student-centered. Yeah, and then of course, when it's student-centered, it is intellectually stimulating, and therefore we encourage adaptive culture. That word adaptive culture is a very strong word here, because it means, you know, agility and all these things. You need leaders, you need managers who are able to adapt to different culture. So when we use cases, this is one very good outcome of using the case. Because you take the role of the protagonist, you begin to imagine that you're someone else. And if the story is well written, you get into the protagonist much that you begin to think like the protagonist, but on the other hand, you have this theoretical backup that you have. So you have things at the same time. You've got the feelings and you've got the principles of doing things. So that is where cases can mobilize internal motivators. So students will feel like, you know, they have self-esteem because they have already taken some roles, despite it being a simulated role. And then they will become more confident, and gradually the more they read cases and hopefully write cases, there'll be a lot of chances for them to go into self-actualization. Yeah, and of course it's suitable for adult learning. I guess that's why in Harvard they use that a lot. All right, can we have the next slide, please? Yeah. William, can we have the next slide?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, it's there. Yes. Okay. So what can your students learn? What is it? Yeah. So if you agree, sometimes in the classroom you will say, well, my student didn't learn that. But for people who vouch for the case method, the student will be better at analytical reasoning. They will be able to question. Yeah. One technique that I really like to use when I write is to put in a lot of questions embedded in the paragraphs. Because when you have those questions, but of course they don't only come with a question mark. Sometimes you can say, Dr. Hiram wondered, what will happen if suddenly the webinar, you know, the frame will go dark? What will happen? Yeah. So that's like using the word wondered, but I didn't say what will happen if this one goes dark. Yeah, if the frame, if the interface goes dark, for instance, right? And the other thing is they'll be able to diagnose because they'll have different options to choose, and they take one. And problem solving, communication skill, influencing skills, social skills, decision making skills. If you look at all the skills that's needed for the 2020s, yeah, you have application skills, creativity skills, etc. Yeah. Then go into communication skill and the social skills, because I think with the pandemic, for instance, you need a lot of empathy from everyone around the world. Yeah, so these cases should actually evoke this kind of feelings if you're going to write about that for the competition. Yeah, of course, then because from the case they can generalize from general principles to specific, and then they can become more objective, and of course they'll be able to integrate theory into their own practice. And most people say, I don't know whether it's a good thing, because when you propose a decision, you must back it up by you have to exemplify your answers. Yeah, so that's where all these good things will come to your students. Let's have the next slide, please, William. Yeah, next slide.
Yes, the next slide is
Can we have
moving.
the next
Yes.
slide? Yeah. Yeah, all
Yes,
right. Yeah, I think there's a bit of a lag. All right. Okay. So for us, what about us? What about us teachers? Yeah, what do we do? What's our role? Yeah. The basic role that you can play immediately after this, if you're not yet a writer, is facilitator, to be a guide, to be an instructor. So what you can do, William has already shared with us, you know, those at least 10 free cases. You can download them and try them out and facilitate your class based on the studies, because they also have the teaching note to guide you, right? But the sounding board is a very important role that lecturers can take. What it means is that when you hear the student asking some questions about things they don't know, a good skill for a sounding board role is that you must be able to ask more questions. Yeah, because you shouldn't give them the answers. That's not the point of using the case method. The case method is as someone who raise a, echo their thoughts of the students. You must be able to ask more questions, not give them answers. And in that role, you do that because you are the mentor. Yeah, and if they're not reacting to the case, you have to be the prompter. You have to guide them because you know the different levels of your student. Yeah, so cognitive level, language levels, you have to help. And therefore, that's because you're using some other people's cases. So if you find it too difficult to use other people's cases, what do? You become a case writer. Yeah, because if you write your, will know how to pitch your case at the level of most of your students, the average students that you have. And you know what they can handle, what they can't. And when you know that, then you will be able to take them one step forward, yeah, in learning journey. Yeah, of course, the participants, on the other hand, what are their roles? They become content provider. Actually, with one case, you can do 10 other cases minimum if you have 10 people reading it, because they'll be reacting with different views and different perspectives. Yeah, and these people can be creator of knowledge, because based on this prompt, that is the case, the students will be able to create their own knowledge. They will solve problems, they will debate, sometimes they agree, sometimes they don't agree, they will mediate, they will lead, they will follow. Of course, jokes aside, yeah, students will also be able to become good researcher. If you give them some cases, the first thing they will do is to Google whether there's already answers to that cases. Yeah, so never mark your case unless it's a specific answer that you want. Usually you need a rubric, yeah, so that you can accommodate the different decisions that come by, and what kind of solutions that they propose, right? Okay, can we have the next slide, please?
All right, it's next slide. Just wait for a while. Okay, here
All
you
right, okay. So here, yeah, we have covered the students, we have covered the facilitators or lecturers. Let's look at one very important document, and I think William alluded to that as well just now. So what we have is that the teaching note. The teaching note is so central in becoming, for you to become a case writer, because here with the teaching note, you can, of course, here we say instructors and also writers, assess whether the case is suitable for your own teaching object. Not objections, I'm sorry. That's the case of the mistake there. Objectives, yeah. And then number 2 is to document your case study strategy and how the case can be used. And number 3 is to explain the analysis of the case. Remember, when the author analyzes a case, you might just take it like, okay, that's one person's opinion. Maybe you have a different opinion about it. That's why if you're just going to use a case, don't read the teaching note first. Read the case first, then later the teaching note, if you're the user, yeah? Because otherwise, influenced by the way the case writer is thinking. Whereas a case study can be very, very, what do you call it? It can be open to all kinds of interpretations. Yeah. So I think it's important that you read the case first before the teaching note. But when you write, usually you start with the teaching note, then you do the writing. It's like an outline, yeah, getting your thoughts together. Okay, can we have the next slide, please?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so what are common elements in a teaching note? Yeah, so we have to, first thing that we must know, what's the nature of the case. So if we look at the nature of the case, nature of the case, remember, is it, there's many categories to the nature of the case. It could be by levels, it could be by subject, it could be by topic. Is your summary, overview, or the synopsis. The synopsis is so important because if you cannot write a short a synopsis of your case, that means it's not clear. So here, being precise, concise, etc., is required for you to write a good synopsis. Yeah, so you don't waste your words. Everything is very tightly described. Yeah, and then of course your teaching objectives is very important. And then your target audience, whether it's for it's for a foundation course, diploma, degree, MBA, etc., MBA, right? And your end user courses. Sometimes if you're not targeting only one course, then it can be used in more than one. For instance, in strategic management, organizational behavior, etc. Then you have the end user courses. That means it's a very fluid and agile case there, yeah. And then your teaching strategies, and then how are you going to analyze the case, yeah. And usually you have discussion question in the teaching note. Some people, some cases, they will also include some questions at the end of the case study. That is like a simple case. For the MBA, normally they would have to find the issues themselves, and the questions will become part of the learning problem. Yeah, that's a question formulation. And then you have your sample answers. If it's a research case, a lot of references, and then you might want to link it to other materials, and then also report on the use in the classroom, because when you write the case, you would want to test it out in the classroom, and sometimes you make adjustment. And outcome, what really happened. This is very interesting. Remember, cases can be outdated very, very quickly if you don't know how to make it last a long time. But some cases are so strong in the sense that the theme can be used across decades, yeah, because it's still the same thing. So there are many types of cases that you can write. Some are dated almost before they're even published, because your data would change, and suddenly, let's say you write about something about Asia, and then the pandemic came in. That one, nobody can help you. The case would be, the data would be what you call it, obsolete. But what you can do as a case writer, you can update it, yeah, because actually new challenges come in, so you can update your cases. Okay, can we have the next slide, please? Right, can we have, yeah, we're almost done.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, some of, yeah, the strong advocates of case studies, yeah. Of course, Harvard University is very well known, because for many universities, we will mix case studies with other kinds of teaching and learning approaches. But for Harvard, they are totally using the case method. So they started 102 years before. I mean, from this year, they've been doing cases 102 years ago. Yeah, and by 1998 they already published 5,000 cases. So if you think about it, it was a very slow growth. Yeah, 5,000 cases by 1998. Yeah, whereas when you look at the number of cases that Emerald has published just now, because there's more interest in cases, you see that the number has gone up across the board for other publishers as well. Yeah, but anyway, in Harvard University, they produce about 600 case studies per year, and each MBA student would have gone through 900 case studies before they graduate, yeah, within the 2 years on campus. So you imagine, how do you teach, what kind of cases do they have to go through? Yeah, and of course we have the case center, we have Ivy Publishing. In India, we have the Flame University, which does a lot of very interesting Indian cases as well. And in Malaysia, we have USIM, we have UUM, UPM, Uniraza, IUM, etc., UniKL, my university. And of course, but now here, I'd like to bring your attention to Emerald Publishing. Yeah, so Emerald Publishing, which William has already described in quite good detail just now, is that you can see that Malaysia is contributing quite a lot to the cases in the Asian region. But when we say quite a lot, that's still only 53. Yeah, so we have now 444 people online. If we can get half of this 444 people online to write, you can get 200 cases published. Yeah, so do you think, maybe some of you would say, oh, you know, my students are not very good in English, they're not you know, not up to it, maybe they will not benefit from it. Yeah, so what I've done is that I've just casually Googled something about using the case method. And I don't know who Dr. Nick Nazli is. I've seen her picture. She's from IIUM. but she did one research in the year 2011 on the case method, and she tried it in her advanced management accounting course, and she called it in the passive learning environment, either passive because of subject matter or because we're Malaysians, etc. And interestingly, she found out that the case method was very useful and gave them numerous benefits. And students, it shows, she said, according to her study, that students in a passive learning environment generally find case studies to be very beneficial. Can you imagine if it's active? Yeah, because there's a lot of these opportunities for discussion, etc. So the practical implication of her research, she said that the case approach should be used more extensively and introduced earlier in accounting undergraduate programs. I think it cuts across the board for other fields as well. Yeah. So now, what I would like to do, can we have the next slide, please? Yeah. Okay. So here, there are many opportunities for us to enhance the use of cases in the classroom, and also of course not only in the classroom, yeah, in organizational settings as well. So how do we fill in the gap? There are many answers to this question, but for us today, one way that we can do this is to actually participate in the case writing competition that has just been announced by Emerald. Okay, so before you do that, just, I'm sure many of you are already familiar with the Emerald cases, because I think Emerald has been going to so many libraries. But here I would like to share just a very simple tip in the next 5 minutes from myself as a case writer, not as a teacher. Yeah, what I would suggest, since at least if you have access to all the cases, that's well and good. But if you don't, Emerald has given you 10 teaching notes and also 10 cases. So you look through all these cases. Yeah. So basically what you can do, like what I will do every time I get something, I will put everything on matrices. And the first thing is the case study. Let's say Uber. I look at it and I found out that the teaching note, they have 4 pages of teaching note in for Uber, right? But they only have 3. The case study has 3 pages. The teaching note has 4 pages. And then for the second $1 Million Gamblers, they have only 1.5 page case, so it's a short case, right? And then they have 7 pages of teaching notes. So you see that teaching notes can be very important if the case is short. Yeah, but if the case is long, it can go either way really. But in the case of the Hope Home, the case study is 24 pages because there are many illustrations included there. Remember, you can include illustrations. And then the teaching note is 20 pages. Okay, so here you play around with, as a case writer, if you want to write a case, you must already focus on both the teaching note and the case study. Yeah, but as I mentioned, I usually start with the teaching note if it's for a teaching case. I start with the course objectives and how do I get use a case to meet some of the course objectives. But the case objective is different from the course objectives. All right. Okay. Can we go through? Maybe I'll go through one. The Uber. Yeah, so you see in the abstract, yeah, after you look at the teaching note, etc., you imagine yourself writing the abstract. So the first thing, like in the case of Uber, the most important thing for the writer was to look at the learning outcomes. What is the case supposed to do for the students, right? And then they came up with the learning outcomes. So you can see here, they have 3 things to understand, what else, yeah, to incorporate, to analyze, etc. Of course, some of us would say we shouldn't be using the word to understand, yeah, so it must be something outcome based, but in this case they put it that way, yeah. And then the case synopsis talks about the Uber as a US-based multinational and talking about shared economy as a business model. And then, but here it is contextualized in South Africa and how it created many job opportunities. But I think it's got a blend of all kinds of issues there, yeah? Okay, can we go to the next page, please? All right. The next thing you have to determine is what is the complexity level. Yeah. So it says here that this is a short case which can be cut across a number of programs. Yeah. When the case is short, not necessarily that it will be easy. Yeah. Short cases might not be easy because sometimes the content can be difficult. The concepts that you incorporate into the case itself can be difficult. Yeah. So you see, in the writing a case, you have so many choices, yeah, to make. Yeah. And then it says here you can use supplementary, or they tell you that where you can get the supplementary materials. In this case, it says that it can be used under strategy, marketing, business model, innovation, or entrepreneurship module. But when you look at the subject code, that means this case was written for the specific code. In this one, it will be categorized under strategy, because strategy is usually the macro level, and marketing businesses would be subsumed under strategy, I guess. But if that focus inside the case focuses on marketing, then it could fall into the marketing category. Okay, can we look at the next one? Yeah, next slide. Okay, so this one is, I can't say the word there. Yeah, but anyway, it's about the Google case. Yeah, Google is a very well-known company, so you can imagine that there's a lot of resentment sometimes from foreign countries, except for because it's an American company. Yeah, so here you look at how they start the abstract. They, instead of learning objective, they use the term theoretical basis. So here you look at what are the theories that you want to use when you use this case. So this is basically a strategic management case. So you have the PESTEL analysis, stakeholders analysis, etc. Yeah. So how did the writer get all the information for them to write? They relied on the secondary resources, and also tested it on the undergraduate student in Cologne, Germany last year. Okay, so you see, this abstract is a bit different from Uber. So as a writer, you might want to include all if you want, but what is most important is you have to choose what is attractive about your case study. Yeah. Next, can we have the next page, please? Yeah. Okay, and then they have case overview. So they give you a brief idea about the case. So when you have a case overview, you must always start with the beginning, the ending, and somewhere in between. You can have about 4 lines, 4 statements to tell everything, because in between the information that you use to tease out the thinking from the student. But the beginning must be impactful that people want to get into the case, and the ending must be so impactful that people know what they need to do with the case. So basically, when you look at the synopsis, these are the 3 things. Yeah, very impactful, attractive beginning, adequate information for you to tease out thinking, and finally, the ending must be just that it leaves them with a lot of questions in their mind. So by reading your case, you create people who will be good in making questions, right? And the complexity level, according to this person, this is quite a long case. Yeah, it's actually MBA level. Yeah, it's for consumer research, all these things. So because this one is an open case, that means it's not targeted to a specific cause. What they've done is that gentrification, Google, PESTEL, all, if you territoriality, if you look at all these things, you'll be able to, when you Google the search word, they will lead you to this case. Okay, so I hope with the 40 minutes that were spent here, I've been able to at least share. Let me recap again. What is a case, why you should use it, if you're a strong advocate in it, if you really believe that it will work in your classroom, or if you don't, you try it out first. You will find that using a case is great, but writing a case is even greater. So I invite all of you to participate in the Emerald case writing competition. Yeah, we're here to help you. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hiram. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. Cordelia. Now there are quite a number of questions in the question section, but
Okay.
I think most of these questions have been addressed by William or some others. But Dr. Cordelia, can I ask you a few
Yeah.
questions on behalf of the participants? We
Alright.
have roughly 10 minutes because we need to allow some time to Dr. Sharifa, who initiated this case study webinar, to give a concluding remarks. So anyway, Dr. Cordelia, now for a person who has no experience with case study, but after listening to your presentation, he or she aspires to write, what would be your advice for an absolute novice with no experience with case study?
All right. My first advice is, just now I think William shared with us, they have resources for people who wish to write cases. You know, it doesn't come overnight. The skill to write a case requires a lot of reading, a lot of thinking, a lot of actually writing or typing, whichever way you want it. And a lot of it has got to do with, if you're very novice, do modeling. That's what I will use in my case writing class. So what it means is that my advice, yeah, start with the you know, the 10 cases, choose 3 cases, and then you just print them out. I like to print them out because if you print them out, you can see them and you can use highlighters.
Okay.
What you do is you look at the beginning, you look at the ending, and you look at the middle. As I said, any case would have this 3 major portion. What did they put in the middle? What did they write in the beginning? What did they write in the end? Yeah. So if that's the first step, you've got to know what you want to write. You've got to know the genre. What does it look like? What does a good case look like? Even better, go to Emerald and choose the or any other sites. I cannot but just be biased towards Emerald, right? But you choose the case studies that have been what do you call it, that have won awards and things like that. So you study from good examples.
Right.
When you look at that, my most the thing that I enjoy doing most is to read the beginning and the ending, because in between anything can happen. Yeah, that impactful beginning will make people want to read your case. If they read the first line, they feel like dying, they're never going to read your case, never going to teach a case, and never going to write a case. Okay, so look for good examples. And of course, you can also arrange for classes. I find that basically, if I run a class, a 3-day course would be enough to introduce very basic skills. But I have also trained CEOs. Yeah, I actually train CEOs who write cases because it's required by their association. I do that only on a 1-day course, but they are CEOs, so they write their own stories, so it's different. Yeah, but we are not CEOs. Yeah, we need to actually become the protagonists. Yeah, so 3-day workshop is minimum. Yeah, just as a, you know, introducing the concepts with some exercises. Yeah.
Okay. That's great. Now, the last part of your response brings me to the next question. Now, in Malaysia, there are many MBA programs. There are many international students. They are from different backgrounds. Would you recommend academics to work with MBA students, to work with these students from Malaysia, from abroad? For example, giving them assignment related to cases, and we can actually work with them to produce papers, to produce teaching notes. Would that be workable? So the idea does not come from us. The idea actually comes from the students, from MBA students, because MBA students could be CEO, they could be, you know, directors, managers. What's your take on that?
Right.
Yeah. Yes, it's a big yes. Yeah, because as I mentioned just now, when actually for the Malaysian Institute of Insurance, for the CEOs to become fellows, they would have to do 1 case. Yeah, and those are the CEOs that I teach. Yeah, so you cannot imagine the richness of the the stories that they write, the narratives. Some have 20, 27, 37 years of experience in the industry. Yeah. So of course, and they are your students anyway. Yeah. But I'm not. I didn't plan this question, but yeah. But I said yes because we actually do that in UniKL for my MBA class. We have a lot of mobility students. So in my own class, because I'm biased towards case writing, right? The student would have a term paper whereby they follow a company, a real company. So we guide them with 12 modules for them to do the analysis of the company. And at the end of the day, they come up with their reports, which could come up to between 70 to 80 pages. And from the 70 to 80 pages, those reports are easily transformed into a case study. Yeah. And the learning is so real. Yeah. Some work for multinationals, some will be doing, private companies, some be doing things on, let's say, the latest one that I have is on Blue Bear, yeah, which is a social enterprise. So next week, the student will present all the things that she's done in the last 2 semesters, and that would be turned into a case study. Yeah, that could be easily transformed into a case study. So remember my slide when I say content provider, it comes from the student. Yeah, yeah. So it's a big yes. Yes, huge yes. We can do it together. Yeah.
Wow, I mean that is great. That would definitely facilitate a lot of publication because the ideas do not necessarily come from us. We can actually work with our students, especially those working adults. They have rich experience. They have a lot of background stories which we can utilize. Now, one last question, a little controversial. You can choose to not answer before we move on to the concluding remark.
Yes.
Now,
all right.
For DBA and MBA, do you think we should replace the traditional thesis with case writing?
Okay.
Oh my God. I didn't plan that question as well. I don't know why the questions are coming like this. Yeah, but actually I did I did a DBA, yeah, in MMU actually. It was between doing a PhD in UM or a DBA in MMU. So very different. Yeah, but I didn't know what a DBA was, but I went and I never regretted it. So when I was in MMU, we had 2 choices, whether to do the normal thesis or to do a case study. Yeah, because at that time they were doing the case method. Yeah, so it's a case of a let me call it now. I will call it the case of an illuminated learner. I feel illuminated, but when it was going on, it was a frustrated learner. Yeah, a frustrated DBA candidate because they asked us to write in 3 case. We have case study part 1, part 2, part 3. Part 1 is where we look at the overall economic situation. Part 2 is when we study the organization in detail. And part 3 is when we merge all the part 1, part 2, and it becomes part 3. So there were 9 chapters. Can you imagine? MQA came in at that point and they say, no, we're not used to this. Make it into 5. There's one girl, my senior, she didn't want to change because MQA hasn't come in. But in my case, they say, okay, it's perfect. It's good as a 9-chapter thesis or whatever report you call it. But we want it to be done the normal research way. So what do? I have to change everything else because basically it's about research. It's just how you rearrange your thing. It's not easy. It was, I mean, everyone was like, you can break down at that point if you're not familiar with writing. Yeah. But I would agree to, with, I didn't think anything was wrong in doing it, a case study 1, 2, and 3. And it's so rigorous that, because I now supervise many PhD students. I think what we've learned through the DBA was so enriching because you get to really look into all the principles and theories across management. Yeah, because we did a strategic audit of these things. I would not. I don't think it's controversial because basically around the world, people have been accepting different types of reports at the end of it. I don't understand why we have to. It's not creative. We have to have a case study of why we're not doing that. Yeah. So maybe we'll write a case on that. Thank you very
so much,
for
Dr.
the
Cordelia.
question.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, yes, William.
So before we end that, right, I actually found one of the questions by our audience very interesting, because this question I also have been asked a few times. I wanted to, yeah. Since we have the opportunity, right? If I may actually get some comment from Dr. Cordelia. Dr. Cordelia, the question is as so: will publishing a case study that is Scopus index, a case study journal, is it equivalent to publishing a research paper, which is also in the Scopus index journal? So what is it equivalent for publishing in case that is ranked in Scopus, or is it different that publishing that if the journal ranks Scopus?
If you ask me, I have two ways of answering it. There are some rules by some people that say, 2 case study is equivalent to 1 research, etc. But I have one question. Remember, I said as a prompter, I want to pass back that question by saying that, do you think the kind of research work that gets into case writing is not equivalent for a normal or conventional research? If you do case writing, then you would really know the answer is not so. For instance, if I just send out a monkey survey, and all that, I come back, do my statistics, I can be in Scopus tier, whatever. But try and do it, because case study is basically in a mixed mode. You have to deal with numbers, you have to deal with information in some cases, and at the same time, you have to do both qualitative and quantitative data that you have to incorporate into your what you call case study, and you have to make that choice. You have to look at secondary data, you have to do interviewing. It's only the way you present it makes it different. Remember, there's the case study and the case studies, 2 different types basically. So I think that's why the movement by Emerald to actually put, and many other publishers as well, to put it under Scopus index really mean that it is to break us from the silo of thinking that there's one way to do research. And going back to pragmatism, because it's so pragmatic, who would read a very difficult research article in the classroom that would benefit so many people? But many people will read a good case study and learn if you use it. So I'll pass that question back to whoever asked that. All right, and maybe we can explore it. All right. Okay.
That's a very good answer. We have to really thank Mr. William and Dr. Cordelia for their speeches. Before we end, let us invite Dr. Sharifah, who is the Deputy Director of Research Industrial Linkages Community and Alumni Network Division, University Technology Mara, Sabah Branch, for initiating this webinar, and for her to give a concluding remark. Dr. Sharifah, all yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hiram. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi everyone. Assalamualaikum. First of all, syukur alhamdulillah we managed to get this webinar run smoothly this afternoon. Okay, thank you to Emerald Publishing for agreeing to collaborate with us, UiTM Chongan Sabah, in organizing this webinar. Thank you to Mr. William and his team. Thank you also to Dr. Hiram, for assisting me in organizing this webinar. Dr. Hiram is an Emerald ambassador. He is also a prominent editor for many index journals. So his willingness to assist us and to become moderator, we truly appreciate that. Thank you very much, Dr. Hiram. And then Dr. Cordelia, I think it was quite last minute that we approached you. It was last week because this idea just came out and I approach Dr. Hiram and William. So yeah, that's the detail for Dr. Hiram. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Dr. Cordelia, for your sharing, for your tips.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we really appreciate that. To all the participants for this webinar, thank you so much for your participation. We really hope that this webinar inspire you, motivate you to write case studies, to participate in this Malaysia Case Study Writing Competition 2020, and also to publish your papers. We really hope that this webinar is useful for everyone. And if you have any suggestions for future webinar, please let us know. Yeah, I must also thank my team at BPJIMA at UiTM Cawangan Sabah, Puan Rosalina Fitri, for this successful webinar. Yeah, so with that, thank you everyone. Selamat berbuka puasa. Selamat menyambut Hari Raya Aidilfitri. Maaf zahir dan batin. Stay safe, stay at home. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Dr. Sharifah.
Yeah,
Dr. William, thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for
Thank
your
you, Dr.
participation.
Sharifah.
So
Right.
we
Thank
will
you,
send the e-certificate to all the participants.
Together with the recording, yeah.
And then we will send the recording to all of you. If you have any questions, feel free to approach Emerald Publishing, Dr. Cordelia or Dr. Sharifah. This will certainly this will not be the last webinar on case study. We hope to see you again in the future.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank
Goodbye.
you, everyone.
Right. Before the audience leave, I'm so sorry. Just I have been reminded that we actually have a survey. So once I actually end the webinar, we will be asked we actually ask some surveys to actually get some feedback from you. Whether does this webinar helping you, giving you some impact. Or is there any improvement for us on our sites, right, and things like that. So the surveys are actually available after this webinar is ended, and also in the follow-up email. In an hour after this webinar is ended, automated email will be sent to all the attendees with a video of this webinar, so you can rewatch it, and also the e-certificates for attendance, and also the survey. So we appreciate that if you can actually write in some surveys, some feedback for us, for us to actually improve into that. Thank you so much once again. I hope everyone stays safe and healthy in this during time. Thank you, Dr. Hiram, and Dr. Sharifah, and Dr. Cordelia.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank
See
you.
you all again. Yeah,
Bye
keep
bye.
writing. Bye. Bye.
Bye.